Well, hello and welcome to the sixth video in this beginner's guide to Adobe After Effects. So in this tutorial, we're going to take a closer look at the project panel because every element that is brought into After Effects is placed into the project panel. So it might help you to think of this as a kind of a links panel. As a beginner, there are a few important things that you're going to need to learn about this particular panel before we can move on. So we'll discuss the project panel in a bit more detail and show you how media elements are brought into the program, how we manage them, how we place them in the timeline, so that we can, like I was saying at the end of the last lesson, be ready to edit. So that means that in this video, we're going to cover the following topics: project panel, managing links, managing assets in the project panel, and placing media elements from the project panel into your compositions. So then after this video, you'll have a much better understanding about how all this works together for your benefit, and you'll be a whole lot more comfortable moving forward. So let's get into it. So here, you can perhaps remember that I'm right here where we left off in the previous episode with an After Effects project open. So right now I want to draw your attention to the project panel, which is located over here on the left-hand side of the interface. As I mentioned earlier, every element that exists in your project is stored right up in here, and it's ready to be placed into a composition. So in this instance, we can have a number of folders. In the comps folder, we can see all the compositions that make up this project. And above it, we have the assets folder. If we toggle down, we can also see some more folders where I've organized my media into various sections. And we're looking at audio, images, solids, and video. Now, if I click on the drop-down button on these folders, you can just see the media elements within. Now, for this example, I'm going to put my mouse carefully over the top of the timeline panel until I see the cursor change to the arrows. And then I'll click and drag down, and this will give much more visibility. So as you scroll up and down in the project panel, we can see that there are quite a few media elements in this project. I've personally organized my files in this way so that I know where everything is and where to access it from. You'll get comfortable and you'll be able to customize that as well. But next, what I want to do is draw your attention to the top of the project panel. At the top of the project panel, we have this media info space. For example, if I click into the video folder below and click on aquarium.mp4 at the top of the project panel, we can see the information regarding this particular video. For instance, you can see the name, how many times it's used in the project, dimensions, its length, frames per second, and the video format. And we can also use this area of the project panel to check any media item that we have in the project. So this time I'll just come up here and click on an image. Now remember to use this feature if you want to check info about your different media items in After Effects. Oh, and another quick way to see some information at a glance is to pull your project panel out. In After Effects, the project panel is neatly placed over on the left. Now, if I carefully place my cursor where the project panel meets the visual compositions panel, right here in the middle, we can see the cursor change to arrows. Now, let me just mention that when we bring media elements into an After Effects project, they are not physically part of the file. In other words, all media elements such as video, images, and audio will exist on your computer, and then when you bring them into After Effects, they appear here as links. So that's why I say it'll help you to think of this project panel like a links panel. So if a link is changed, edited, or just completely deleted, well, it will effectively change or break the link. For example, if I come into the project panel and come into the video folder and select a video link, let's go with park.mp4. And if I right click and come here and click Reveal in Finder, well, a browser window will appear and we can see where on the computer the media file is placed. Now, if, for example, I want to change the name of the link, and I'll just put an X on the end of the file name, and if I come back in here to After Effects, we'll get a message stating that a file could not be found, right? Because it's looking for that very name. So if I click OK, we'll now see where the file was placed in the composition, and we'll now have this colored background. So when a file is missing or changed in After Effects, you will always see this colored image, and this will be applied to anything that is missing, okay? So notice in the project panel, we'll see this colored icon applied to the now missing link. So now if I come back into my browser window and change the file name back, and I'll just take away the X from the end of the file name and go back to After Effects, we can still see that the image link is missing, but now if I come back to the media link in the project panel, right-click and select Reload Footage, the media will appear just as it was before. Now, another example is if a file is moved to a different place on your computer, to a different hard drive, whatever. So back in the browser window, I'm just going to move my file from this folder into another folder. And if I come back into After Effects, we'll just get the message stating that a file could not be found. All right. So if I click OK again, we will see the colored background in our comp and on the media link in the project panel. So now this is a very common thing that happens. However, what we can do is come back to the broken media link in the project panel, right-click and select Replace Footage and select File. And then when you click on that, we can then navigate to the file on the computer. So in this example, I'll just navigate to the new video location and click OK, and then the media will appear just as it was. Well, on its new path anyway. So what we've done here is we've replaced the footage, right? So I'm going to come back here into my folder and just put the file back into the stills folder. So when you look at it in After Effects again, we'll get the same error message. So again, I'll just right-click and select Replace Footage, select File, and I'll just navigate back to the folder that it was originally and select it, click OK. And that's how the media will appear the way it was. All right, so you get that. These are all file paths with links. So keep in mind that you got to be really careful when you're working in After Effects because of this linking process. If you make any changes at all to the files or move them around your computer outside of the program, it will have this knock-on effect, if you will, inside your After Effects document. If it does happen, you will typically need to reload the footage or relink the footage. And that's okay. I've shown you how to do it, so you'll see that it's nothing to panic about. So next up, I think it's important to mention that when you create a brand new After Effects project, you don't have any folders or anything in this project panel. So how do we manage assets in the project panel? Well, we'll start by creating a new document. So first of all, let's close up our project. Now come up to this here, click File and select the Close option. So if it asks you to save, you can select Save or Don't Save. It doesn't matter. But for now, I'll just, I'll select Save. So after closing the project, you should now see a blank interface ready for a new project. Now, if I click the New Composition button here in the middle to start a new project, or come up to Composition on the top bar and click New Composition, up will pop the Composition Settings window. Now make sure the dimensions are set to 1920 by 1080, and the comp length is set to 1 minute. And I'll click OK, and we'll see a brand new composition open. Now, if we look over in the project panel, we'll see just one composition present. If we look down in the timeline panel, we will see no layers inside. Okay, so that's good. So now I want to organize my media in the project panel. To do that, I'll just come down here to the bottom of the project panel and click the Create New Folder icon. So when I click it, I'll see a new folder in the project panel. So I'm going to call this comps, and it's in this folder that I'm going to place all of my compositions that I've made throughout the project. So now if I accidentally click outside of the folder, well, I can select it and press Enter on the keyboard to change the name. With my comps folder created, I'll just click and drag my comps1 composition into the comps folder. All right, so now it's time to bring some external media into my project. To do that, it's really easy. Well, one way, anyway, is to come into the project panel, and with your cursor, just double-click into the blank space below the folders down here. So when you do that, you'll see a pop-up browser window, and this is After Effects asking you, what kind of file would you like to import? So you can select anything on your computer, even a folder. So for now, I am going to select Park MP4 and Aquarium MP4. These are both videos. So when I click that, you'll see all the videos appear in the project panel. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to quickly come down to the bottom of the project panel and click the new folder icon. I'll name this new folder Videos. And then I'll select both videos. And with them selected, I will just drag them into that folder. All right, so now I have two new folders in my project panel, a comps folder and a videos folder. So next I am going to bring in some video files, but this time I'll show you another way. And we'll do it like this. So I'm going to come back into the project panel with the mouse. I'm going to double click in the blank space. Now a pop-up browser window will appear, and this time I will add pictures on my computer to my project. But instead of selecting the pictures here one by one and adding them, I'll choose the file containing the pictures and click Open. So when I do that, you'll see the folders all appear inside the project panel. So that means After Effects will interpret the folder structure from the browser and copy the folders into After Effects. And if I click to toggle down the folders, we can see the media items inside. How cool is that? So of course you can create a new file and transfer the uploaded photos into this file. I'm not going to do that for now, but that's something to keep in mind. That's one way to place content into your After Effects project. So now another way is just to simply drag content from a browser window into After Effects. So this time I will first be in an open browser window on my computer, and I'm going to make sure that I can clearly see the After Effects interface right behind it. All right, so I'll click into the image folder and then click into the JPEG folder. So in this folder, I can see some images. So here I'll just simply select one or two, now maybe more images, and then with it selected, I can just drag my mouse from the browser window and into After Effects. So with my cursor over the project panel area, I just release the mouse. And then the files will all appear in my project panel. So I'll just drag and drop this image into the JPEG folder. All right, so that's a few simple ways to get media into your After Effects project, as well as how to organize media into neat folders so that you know where everything is in the project panel. All right, so once you have your media in After Effects, it's time to start working with it, right? Play around. So right now we have a composition open, and we can see the black screen in the visual composition panel, and the timeline panel is blank. So now there are a few ways that we can get some content into your compositions. So I'll toggle down the video folder, and inside of here I can click and drag a video element down into the timeline at the bottom. And then upon release, you'll see the video appear in the timeline panel as a layer. And you'll notice that the layer appears as a bar from the beginning of the timeline. And this bar represents how long the video footage is, right? So in this instance, the video is around a minute long, and we know this just by looking at where it ends. compared to the time indicator at the top of the timeline panel. So one way is to click and drag elements from the project panel into the timeline panel. But another way is to drag elements from the project panel into the visual composition panel in the middle. So I want to try this with an image this time. This time I'll just click and drag an image over into the visual composition panel, and then when I release it, see how it appears in the composition. So now I just placed in an image with a resolution greater than the video. So right now the image will appear cropped within the video frame. But if I click and drag the image around in the composition panel, we can move it around like so. So when we place the image, it appears on top of the video that we previously placed. Do you see that? And now if we look at the timeline panel, we'll also see a new layer, and it is indeed on top of the video layer. So now when you drag media elements from the project panel into the composition panel, they will always be placed on the top of the layer stack by default. And something else that you'll notice, if you haven't already, is this time the layer goes all the way to the end. So this is because it's a still image and it's got no time signature like video does. So in other words, when you place a still image into your composition, it will span the entire length of time. Now, it doesn't always have to be that, because this is the ultimate in customizability. So to alter that, you just need to change it down in the timeline panel. Cool, so that brings us to the end of this video. So let me just recap a couple of the key things that you want to remember. The project panel is where all your media elements and compositions are located in your project. So if you make any changes to your files or move files around outside of After Effects that are linked, it will definitely have some negative effects inside your After Effects project documents. These elements must be placed into your composition by dragging them into the timeline panel or visual composition panel. So, all right, my friends, we'll take a short break here, and in the next video, we're going to learn some key animation principles in After Effects and how to apply them. So I want to see you in the next video.